Time now to take a look at the international newspapers, and for that I'm joined by Katerina Vitosi. Hello, Katerina.
Hello.
We're going to start off with papers in Egypt, of course, after Mohamed Morsi's decree giving himself more power.
Absolutely, and as you can imagine, it's dominating all the front pages of the Egyptian papers. Let's take a look at Al-Masri Al-Yawm. This is a leading independent daily in Egypt. The headline there, let me translate it for you: rising anger, president under fire. But let's draw particular attention to the photograph in the middle of those three. There, the paper is pointing out that journalists are also feeling like this, how this decree is going to affect them. Is it going to start impinging on press freedom? And in that photo there, we see groups of journalists surrounding the head of the Journalists' Union, who happens also to be a member of the Muslim Brotherhood Party. So this paper, Al-Masri Al-Yawm, really drawing attention to the fact that of what the impact this might have on press freedom in Egypt. Let's take a little look at reaction outside of Egypt to this decree. This from the Wall Street Journal is quite interesting, talking about how the United States maybe might, and how indeed the Wall Street Journal thinks the United States should cope with this diplomatically. They call this a power grab by the Egyptian president. They say that President Barack Obama is in quite a tricky position because only last week he was praising the president for brokering the ceasefire between Israel and Gaza. Now they say just because he praised him last week doesn't mean he shouldn't be afraid this week to say that this power grab, as they call it, is wrong. The International Herald Tribune putting it a little bit more bluntly through a cartoon in their newspaper, as we can see. The old regime was autocratic, dictatorial and secular, says the Egyptian president. We are not secular. So making their position very clear on this.
We're going to stay with the International Herald Tribune for our next story, the ongoing violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Absolutely. This is on the front page of the International Herald Tribune today. A very emotive and moving photograph of a baby being lifted from a truck, crowded by people displaced by the internal fighting there between the government and rebel groups. The International Herald Tribune asks a very interesting question. Why is it that despite sort of billions of dollars of aid being pumped into the Democratic Republic of Congo, why hasn't there been any more progress to sort of stop this violence? Why are we still seeing pictures like that on the front page of newspapers from the region? Quoting one research institute who say that despite all this billions of dollars of aid, it's not really addressing the root causes of the problems, which are sort of generations old struggles between sort of land and identity and they say that sometimes these questions are just too difficult for international outside sources to sort of deal with.
And what are the Spanish papers making of those results of the election in Catalonia?
Well, on the front page of La Vanguardia, which is a Catalan daily, in fact, there's a fantastic picture of the newly re-elected Catalan president, Arturo Mas. They say this is a hard lesson for him. You can see him there with his wife on the balcony. Sort of happy but slightly consolatory, I feel, is their stance.
Saying his party lost seats.
He lost seats, exactly. So won the election but have lost power. He says that he admits it will be tougher now to push through reforms. The El País, which is the Spanish daily, take a rather more poetic view, saying that Mas has fed the tiger that has now eaten them. So he has sort of fanned the flames of separatism in Catalan, so he shouldn't be surprised now to see other separatist parties come up and claim power in the region.
And finally, it's a big week for newspapers in the UK, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a very nervous week for newspapers ahead of the results of an inquiry into press freedom. This is the 11th inquiry that came about off the back of those News of the World phone hacking scandals. A lot of papers are very worried, but also the government could be a little nervous too. The Prime Minister was the one that ordered this inquiry. Some right-wing members of the Tory party saying that, we shouldn't, if the results come back saying that the state should intervene with the media, that, David Cameron should essentially ignore this. However, the opposition party in the UK is saying, well, why order an inquiry if you're just going to
listen
exactly
to what
if you're just going to ignore the findings? A little cartoon in The Independent showing the slightly delicate position that the Prime Minister David Cameron finds himself in, of the Prime Minister looking over his shoulder at the stalking Levinson inquiry there with a little book, Law to Ban Stalking. So perhaps watch out what you wish for is perhaps a message there for David Cameron.
All right, thank you very much, Katerina.